What if the Jesus you were taught to worship isn't the Jesus who actually taught? What if the church didn't just preserve his message, but replaced it with something much easier to control? Think about the myth you're told to accept. Jesus is God. Believe in him, and you will be saved. It's a simple, powerful story. But this story has a shadow, because there's another tradition, one that's older, more mystical, and dangerous to institutions that thrive on obedience. In this hidden view, Jesus wasn't the one you must believe in. He was the rebirth of an ancient shamanic mystical tradition, a deep spiritual practice connected to early temple mysticism. And his teachings weren't about outsourcing your salvation to someone else. They were about awakening what's already inside you. Then, a historical crack appears in the wall. In 1945, a collection of ancient texts, the Nag Hammadi Library, was discovered in Egypt. And in these writings, a different Jesus emerges. He appears less like a divine idol to be worshipped from afar, and more like a mystic teacher, a guide. He teaches love, not as a moral performance or a rule to follow, but as a state of consciousness, a way of being. And one line from these texts changes everything. I did not come to save you. I came to remind you who you are. If that's true, then Christianity, as it's commonly taught, becomes just a partial story, because it's not enough to simply follow Christ. The real demand is sharper, more intimate, and honestly, more terrifying. You must become Christ, not by declaring your faith with words, but by embodying the transformation within yourself. And this opens up a forbidden question. What if everything you were taught about reality, about God, about yourself, was distorted and incomplete? What if the answers you've always searched for were never in the official version? Because the official version wasn't designed to liberate you. Maybe it was designed to keep you looking outside yourself for power. This is where our story introduces a guide. Betty Kovacs, an author and a brilliant researcher of consciousness traditions. She steps into a gap that most of us feel but can rarely name. On one hand, religion promised us love and ethics, a moral compass. On the other hand, science often reduces life to just matter and chance, a cosmic accident. Both of these narratives explain something, but neither fully satisfies that deep human sense that something is missing. It's as if the explanations we're given are only the shadows of the real truth. Betty Kovacs wasn't looking for another belief system to adopt. She was looking for knowledge, direct, experienced knowledge. Bet, with her academic training in comparative literature, symbolism, and mythic language, she dedicated decades of her life to a single, powerful purpose. Not just to believe, but to know. Not to repeat dogma, and not to accept a cold, mechanical universe. She wanted to find what the old traditions were actually pointing at, the deeper structure of reality, hiding just beneath the surface. And what she found isn't comforting. It's destabilizing, because it suggests that we didn't just forget our mystical power by accident. We were trained to forget it. We were conditioned to look away from our own inner light. The core of her work challenges the fundamental story we've been told about ourselves. The conventional narrative says that humanity started out primitive and ignorant, slowly evolving towards reason and science. In this story, the ancient mystics, the shamans, the visionaries, they were just confused. They were using myth and metaphor because they did and have the scientific tools to understand the world properly. Their gods were just personifications of nature, their rituals just superstition. But Betty Kovacs turns this entire timeline on its head. What if it wasn't a journey from ignorance to enlightenment? What if it was the other way around? What if ancient cultures possessed a highly sophisticated, holistic consciousness that we have lost? What if their myths and symbols weren't primitive science, but a complex, multi-layered language designed to communicate profound truths about the nature of reality and human potential? They understood that the universe wasn't just a collection of dead objects, but a living, breathing, conscious entity. And they knew that we weren't separate from it. We were an integral part of it. They had ways to access other states of consciousness, to journey into the unseen realms, and to bring back wisdom that could heal and transform their communities. This was the shamanic tradition, a technology of the sacred. So, what happened? Why did we lose this connection? According to Kovacs, this wasn't a gentle fading away. It was a deliberate suppression as empires rose, particularly the Roman Empire. A new kind of power structure emerged. This structure couldn't tolerate a population of individuals who had direct access to spiritual experience. Why? Because a person who can find divinity within themselves doesn't need a priest or an emperor to mediate it for them. They can't be easily controlled. So, the mystics became heretics. The shamanic journey was demonized. The sacred feminine, which was central to these holistic traditions, was systematically dismantled and replaced with a patriarchal, hierarchical model. The focus shifted from inner experience to outer authority. You were no longer encouraged to know God. You were commanded to believe in a specific version of God, one sanctioned by the institution. Jesus, in this context, wasn't the founder of this new institutional religion. He was one of the last great representatives of the older mystical tradition. His teachings on the kingdom of heaven within you were a direct echo of this ancient wisdom. But his message was too radical, too empowering. So it was co-opted. The living teacher was turned into a static idol. The path of inner transformation was replaced with a system of belief and obedience. The Nag Hammadi texts are like a time capsule, preserving a glimpse of this original message before it was rewritten. They speak of gnosis, which means direct, experiential knowledge, not blind faith. In these texts, Jesus doesn't ask for worship. He challenges his followers to awaken, to recognize their own divine nature. He says things like, "When you make the two one, you will become the sons of man. And when you say, 'Mountain, move away,' it will move away." This isn't about literal mountains. It's a metaphor for the immense creative power that is unlocked when we unify the fragmented parts of our consciousness. This is the great forgetting. We were taught to see the world as fragmented and ourselves as small, sinful, and separate from the divine. We were taught to fear our own psyche, to distrust our intuition, and to place our faith in external systems. Science, for all its incredible gifts, inadvertently reinforced this separation by telling us the universe is a meaningless machine and consciousness is just a fluke of brain chemistry. So we find ourselves caught between a religion that asks for faith in a story that feels incomplete, and a science that offers a world stripped of meaning and magic. Betty Kovac's work provides a third option. It's a bridge back to that lost knowledge. It validates that deep feeling inside you that there is more to reality than we've been told. Her research is a call to reclaim our own spiritual authority. It's about learning to read the language of myth and symbol again, not as fairy tales, but as a sophisticated map of the human soul and the cosmos. It's about understanding that the mystical states the ancients described are not fantasy. They are a natural part of our human heritage, accessible to all of us. This journey isn't about rejecting science or hating religion. It's about integrations. It's about seeing them both as partial pieces of a much larger puzzle. The real work is to piece together the fragments, to heal the split between spirit and matter, between mind and heart, between the ancient and the modern. The path forward is to become our own mystics, our own shamans. It begins with asking the dangerous questions, challenging the stories we've been given, and having the courage to look within for the answers. It's about realizing that Jesus didn't come to be your savior, but to be your mirror reflecting the divinity that has been sleeping inside you all along. The challenge isn't to believe in him, but to become what he was, a fully realized, conscious human being, embodying the love and power of the universe itself. This is the real journey of transformation. It's not easy, and it's not comfortable, but it's the path to true freedom and wholeness. What if the story of Eden was never about sin? You were told a story: Adam, Eve, a serpent, and a forbidden tree. You were told the moral: they disobeyed, and humanity was punished for it. The pursuit of knowledge became the original crime, and the consequence was a painful separation from the divine. But what happens when you discover this story might be a distortion, a carefully constructed myth designed to hide a deeper truth? What if behind the official narrative lies a hidden symbol not of shame, but of immense power? Today, we're refollowing the trail into ancient traditions that existed long before later patriarchal systems reshaped spirituality into a tool of control. In many of these older mystical lineages, the tree of knowledge is not a trap. The forbidden fruit is not a sin. It's a gift of wisdom, a gateway into a higher state of consciousness. And the serpent so demonized over the centuries, what if it never symbolized evil at all? What if it represented awakening, a primal force that opens our perception to realities beyond the five senses? When you look at it this way, the question is no longer, why did they disobey? The real question becomes, who benefits from portraying enlightenment as a crime? Because if that fruit truly represents access to expanded awareness, then the story of punishment starts to look very different. It becomes a narrative designed to keep human beings from remembering what they are truly capable of becoming. A way to convince us to stay small, to fear our own potential, and to never reach for the branches of that sacred tree. And when you dig deeper, you find another buried element, the divine feminine. This powerful principle was deeply present in older spiritual systems all over the world. But it was gradually erased, its symbols demonized, and its power reduced to a footnote. As the sacred feminine was suppressed, the serpent's meaning was rewritten right along with it. The snake, once a symbol of healing, rebirth, and wisdom in many cultures, became the ultimate tempter, the embodiment of evil. The myth, once a story of integration and wholeness, was twisted into a story of guilt, fear, and blind obedience. But if you restore the feminine principle to its rightful place at the center of the story, the entire myth transforms. It stops being about control and starts being about balance. It's no longer about a fall from grace, but an invitation to rise into a more complete state of being. And this raises an even bigger proposition. If these powers, the power of awakening, of expanded consciousness, not external but dormant inside of us, then perhaps humanity once had the keys to unlock them. We once possessed powerful techniques to awaken our full potential, techniques that could take us beyond ordinary perception, beyond the linear flow of time and space, into states where consciousness experiences reality in a profoundly different way. This is where the trail leads us to the world of shamanic practices. Across countless cultures in every corner of the globe, traditions emerged seemingly independently, all sharing the same core idea. What we perceive as reality is only a surface layer, a fraction of the whole picture. And through intense, focused ritual, through rhythm, repetitive movement, chanting, and the use of sacred plants, practitioners learned how to move past that surface. This wasn't superstition. This was a technology of consciousness. Think about it. Rhythm, music, and continuous movement have a direct effect on our bodies and minds. They can alter our neural states. They quiet the analytical mind, the constant chatter that keeps us locked in our everyday perceptions. They calm the barriers between the physical world and the subtle, energetic realms. Bound in those altered states, people from all walks of life, across thousands of years, have reported contact with a wider, fielder universal mind, an interconnected flow of energy that underlies all of matter. The key realization here is crucial. These weren't just isolated cultural fantasies. They were repeating discoveries. Human beings, separated by vast oceans and entire centuries, found remarkably similar methods to access this expanded perception. Dance in circles until you lose yourself. Chant mantras until the sound becomes a vibration in your very bones. Pulse the body with a drum beat until your heart syncs with the rhythm of the cosmos. The forms were different, but the goal was the same: to move beyond the perceived limits of the body and connect to something universal, something timeless. For a long time, the modern materialistic worldview dismissed all of this. It was labeled primitive or superstitious. The profound wisdom of these ancient practices was cast aside in favor of a purely mechanical view of the universe. But now, a strange and fascinating reversal is beginning to happen. Science carefully, cautiously starting to look again. Neuroscience is now studying the brains of long-term meditators and participants in ancient rituals. Researchers are exploring how altered states of consciousness can measurably change brain activity, healing trauma and opening up new pathways of thought. And one question starts to rise, quietly but relentlessly. What if ancient ritual contained real, verifiable knowledge about the nature of consciousness? Knowledge that our modern science is only now beginning to approach from a different angle. What if the serpent in the garden wasn't a liar, but a liberator? What if the fall wasn't a fall at all, but an invitation to wake up? The story of Eden may be the most misunderstood story ever told. It's not about a mistake we made in the past. It's about a potential that is waiting for us in the future, and a power that lies sleeping within us right now. The only question is, are we brave enough to reach for it? Thanks for joining me on this exploration. If this sparked something in you, hit that subscribe button and join our community. What if the most sacred places on earth were never just places of worship? What if they were engineered? Imagine walking into an ancient temple. Every stone, every column, every shadow is positioned with a precise, calculated intent, not just for beauty or decoration, but for alignment. This isn't just architecture, it's a tool, a piece of technology. Many ancient temples weren't built as simple houses of worship. They were built as portals, as spiritual instruments meticulously designed to transform human perception and elevate consciousness. Civilizations like the ancient Egyptians, the Mayans, and countless other megalithic builders designed these incredible spaces around the cycles of the earth and the invisible energies they believed flowed through the cosmos. Think about it: the solstices, the equinoxes, the alignment with distant stars. These weren't symbolic gestures, they were functional designs. Modern research is beginning to catch up, suggesting that many of these massive structures, the pyramids, stone circles like Stonehenge, positioned in specific locations that may amplify the Earth's natural electromagnetic fields. This creates a powerful resonance with the human body's own energy field. In this view, the temple isn't just a symbol of the divine, it's a functional device. For centuries, people have entered these sacred spaces and reported profound experiences of expanded consciousness, clarity, and deep connection. Perhaps these experiences weren't just a product of faith or imagination. Maybe the environment itself was engineered to shift the mind-body state. We now understand a key piece of this puzzle. The human body is an electromagnetic system, constantly interacting with its surroundings. So, if you step into a place intentionally designed to intensify those interactions, it's logical that your perception might fundamentally change. This could explain the global pattern of mystical temple experiences. They weren't random. They were the result of a deep, forgotten understanding of form, resonance, and consciousness. This brings us to another obsession of these ancient builders: sacred geometry. They used spirals, circles, and perfect mathematical proportions. These aren't just pretty patterns. They are patterns that mirror the fundamental structures of nature itself, from the spiral of a galaxy to the shell of a nautilus. In mystical traditions, these patterns are said to mirror the very order of the cosmos. If shape affects energy, and energy affects consciousness, then geometry suddenly becomes more than just aesthetics. But it becomes a universal language, a code that the universe itself responds to. The structure becomes a key that unlocks a different state of being. But here's where the story takes a darker turn. This profound knowledge wasn't simply lost to time. In many cases, it was actively suppressed. Over centuries, the wisdom about what these structures were truly for, what the ancient practices were designed to do, was systematically hidden, destroyed, or diluted. Living, transformative experience was replaced with rigid, empty ritual. Direct connection to the divine was replaced with obedience to doctrine. The tools for personal transformation were taken away and replaced with systems of control. But knowledge, this powerful, never truly dies. It survived in the shadows. It went underground, preserved in traditions like alchemy, Kabbalah, and Hermeticism. It was passed down through secret societies, in forbidden texts, and through hidden networks of initiates. It became a slow-burning spiritual renaissance, waiting for the right moments in history to resurface, to breathe again. During the Great European Renaissance, this knowledge began to re-emerge. Thinkers like Marsilio Ficino and Pico della Mirandola tried to unify these fragmented traditions into a single, cohesive philosophy. Their central idea was revolutionary, that humanity has the innate potential to achieve cosmic consciousness, to align the individual mind with the universal forces of creation. But these ideas posed a direct threat to the established institutions built on control and hierarchy. And so, the cycle repeated. Censorship returned, and this wisdom was forced back into the shadows once more. But our current era introduces an unexpected and fascinating twist. Modern physics is now exploring concepts that sound remarkably similar to what mystics have been describing for centuries. We're talking about invisible fields that connect everything, an interconnected reality where things are not as separate as they seem, and matter that is not solid but a dynamic dance of energy. The physicist S-observer effect, the idea that the act of observation changes. What is being observed echoes the ancient belief that consciousness is an active participant in reality, simultaneously. Neuroscience is showing us how practices like meditation and focused intention can literally alter the physical structure of the brain. This raises a provocative, world-changing possibility that the mind isn't just a passive observer of reality. It interacts with it, it shapes it. And if our thoughts and intentions can influence the world around us, the central question is no longer theoretical. It becomes deeply practical and urgent. How responsible must we become with our own consciousness? This is the great transition we find ourselves in today. Ancient knowledge, long forced underground, is meeting the boldest frontiers of modern science. A bridge is finally being built between the wisdom of the past and the discoveries of the future. The invitation is becoming clear. The old traditions have always insisted that wisdom is unjust out there in some holy book or sacred place. It is within you. For a long, long time, humanity has been locked into a limited worldview, where matter is primary and consciousness is just a secondary byproduct of brain chemistry. But now, that old paradigm is beginning to crack. And if we dare to entertain the possibility that consciousness is fundamental, that it is the very basis of reality, then everything changes. Spiritual practice stops being superstition and becomes a form of training. Meditation, visualization, rituals of intention. These are no longer just esoteric hobbies. They are disciplined, time-tested methods developed over millennia to unlock the full spectrum of human potential. They are the technologies of the interior world, just as the ancient temples were the technologies of the exterior world. We're not at the end of this journey. We are at the very beginning of a new one. But one thing is already certain. The future of humanity, our potential, may be far larger, far more incredible than the limited story we've been told. Realizing this potential requires a specific kind of courage. It's the courage to question the narratives you inherited, the stories you were told about who you are and what is possible. It's the courage to explore the unknown territories of your own mind. And most importantly, it's the courage to integrate, rather than choose sides between science and spirituality. Because the answer, according to this emerging worldview, isn't waiting for you in a church or a temple. It's not hidden away in a laboratory. It's waiting inside the one place that no institution can ever fully control: your own awareness. If this resonated with you, consider subscribing to explore these ideas further. If you're still here watching my videos, I want to say something simple. Thank you. In a world of endless noise and distractions, the fact that you choose to spend your time here means more than you can imagine. It means you're one of those rare people who wants to go deeper, question reality, and look inside yourself, not just outside. I'm honestly happy that there are people who share these interests, these questions, this search for meaning. So if you feel this space resonates with you, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with someone who might need it. Your support helps this content reach more people who are also quietly searching. Thank you for being here, really.